welcome to this week's class looking at the nature of black and white and questioning whether they are colours or not colours and how possibly we could be using them in our work or not using them in our work. And also some of the colours which I call chameleon colours. They don't necessarily belong to one family, like what we were looking at in that first exercise that we did, where we grouped all the yellows together, all the blues together, all the reds together. There are colours that by appearance we could group them into those families, but when we use them and start mixing them with other colours, they don't necessarily behave how we would expect a yellow to behave, a red to behave, or a blue to behave. This week I will present to you each of the exercises, so it's going to only be a fairly short video this week, which is a change for me, and I won't discuss really much what's happening in terms of the results that we get out of each of these mixes and the exercises that we'll do. I'll save that for the Zoom meeting that we have when I catch up with you. So let's get on with it. The first exercise I want you to do is to go through a magazine and just tear out any pieces that you perceive as white and any pieces you perceive as black. Don't be tempted by the areas in the magazine that are actually printed black or the areas that are white. Try and avoid those. Be looking in photographs and just tear them all out, and on two separate pieces of paper, one for the black, one for the white, stick them down. Once you've stuck them down, find all your paints, pencils, doesn't matter what type they are, anything that's black and white, and I want you to paint down, draw down samples of everything surrounding and in amongst those samples that you've cut out of the magazines. And then we'll talk about this more in Zoom. So for the next part of investigating black and white, what we're going to do is we're going to take some black paint and we're going to use a yellow to begin with, or a red or a blue. I'm actually using the same yellow, red and blue that I used in that last colour wheel. So cad yellow medium, cad yellow light, cad red medium and ultramarine blue, and mixing that with black, or each of those with black. So I'm going to start with yellow just to begin with. What I want you to do is place down just a dab of straight black like that on your page. We're not going to do this in any great scientific or into any organised squares or anything today. What we're going to do is then just take another blob of black here, just put it on your palette like that, and add a little bit of yellow. And place that next to it like that. And then again, take another little blob of yellow and paint that down next to it like that. And just keep going in that same fashion. Now what you want to do is you want to keep going until you can get to as close as possible. And just by adding a little bit of yellow and a little bit of yellow and a little bit of yellow, don't go boom right down into your yellow and have your brush completely full. And make sure the little blobs that you put down here are nice and full of colour. And just keep going. Adding a bit of yellow each time, and just don't worry about too much what's happening here on the page, because we'll talk about this in our Zoom meeting. All I want you to do is get this exercise done. And enjoy it. Look at the beautiful colours. All the beautiful things that are happening there on your palette. Getting closer. Red of yellow. Just put a bit more red. Oh, that was a big jump. We're getting close. Probably nearly as close as we'll get. And then the last thing to do is just with then some pure yellow. There, oh, probably still could have gone, but there you go. So we've got this lovely gradation now between black and yellow. What you can then do is underneath of each of those, if you're working in oil, this is pretty easy, or with watercolour you could just then, with a little bit of water underneath, is just mix into that a little bit of white and drag it down, and see some of these colours opened up with a little bit of white like that. Again, don't go into any great, and you could do all of them. I'm just going to pick a couple here to open up with white. And just work like that. So you've got a chart then with the colour coming out like that, and then opened up with white this way. So you've got a mix from black to the colour, and then those opened up with white. Just with dabs like that. We don't need to go into any, well, up to you. If you want to do squares and things, by all means you can do that for this exercise, but it's purely just an experiment, just seeing with dabs of colour on the page. Then do the same with red, and the same with blue as well. The last exercise we're going to do is looking at a colour burnt sienna. Now, you may not have, and this is outside of those colours that I had listed in that first exercise. But this exercise explores why I don't list it with the reds or the yellows or the blues as a family. And again, we'll talk about this more when I meet you face to face in Zoom. But the idea of this exercise is to mix burnt sienna firstly with ultramarine, and in the same fashion as what we were doing there, just with black. I then want you to mix burnt sienna with Prussian blue, and then mix it with the yellow that we were using just before, or a yellow, so I'm going to mix it with Cad Yellow Light, and then I'm also going to mix it with Cad Red Medium, just to see those subtle differences and how it behaves in each of those mixes. So that will be the final part of this exercise. And then we will get those sent to me, and or at least probably don't need to necessarily send these to me for next week's Zoom meeting, but at least have them on hand when it comes time to discuss them and talk about them in the Zoom.